Good afternoon. It is now 5:02. I call the Master Plan Committee meeting of Wednesday, February 19th, 2025 to order. First order of business is a roll call attendance.
Meg Schlesman, here.
Linda Brown.
Bob Moran.
Robert Leonardi.
Rebecca Lavalley.
Dan Mascroft.
Carol Gogolinsky. Margaret Bacon.
Rich
No.
Preston.
Yeah.
Any absentees?
Gordon Larrabee is excused absent, and Mike Swicker is going to be late. Anyone else I have not heard from.
Very good. Anybody on Zoom? Nope. Nobody on Zoom, I take it.
Nope.
All right, thank you.
Do you have anyone else on our list that isn't?
Bob Menard.
Yeah,
Ross Smith.
haven't heard from either.
Yeah, Ross should be in, I'm sure. Mosey's in. Sorry. Yeah, we have 13 total. We need 7. So how many are we missing now?
2.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
Four total missing, 2 unknown.
but we got a quorum, right?
Yeah, we do.
This is what happens when you have a gazillion people. Or half a gazillion.
But then it only ups the quorum, so it doesn't really help.
No. All right, so if you would be so kind, would you take a look at the minutes of January 22nd?
Kind of on a weird track.
I got a little one here.
I don't take up much room.
Hey, Bob.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the court.
Hey, Bob.
One more chair. Probably in the suit. Squeezing somewhere.
When he gets here.
Are we looking at this?
Yep.
I have one suggestion, if nobody's brought it up already. Through the chair.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Bob.
First bullet item, expenses too far, or it's either so far or to date.
Are you making corrections there? What'd you say?
First bullet item, first sentence, expenses too far have been
So far.
so far or to date. Either
So
option.
far, expenses so far have been 30 grand, right?
Yeah, should be so.
So, not to.
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
not 2. Where's that? Let me down.
Yeah, go ahead.
What we doing?
How are you, Bob? Any other comments, considerations? Need more time?
A little chair for you over there.
We're just taking a look at the minutes, Michael, how are you?
Copy for Mike.
Mark.
I'm actually up there, I've got
All
it
right,
here.
thanks.
Only member absent is Gordon Larrabee, and he's excused.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, it should be 6 for a quorum.
7,
7:30.
We have 13.
Yeah.
yeah.
More than half.
Well, half of 14 would be,
So 12, you'd need 7. 13, you still need 7, I believe. But we have a lot more than that, so we're good.
well, we've only got 13 members.
Right,
Okay, so half of 13 is 6 and a half.
6 and a half,
Yeah.
which we can't
We
do,
can't have less than 6.
Right.
but we need 7.
We need 6.
We need 7.
7.
Seven.
Really?
7.
Yeah,
Odd number.
Well, half of 14 is 7, not 13.
Right.
it's got to be one more, though. It's got to be a
You
majority.
gotta round up.
I'm 6.5. Yeah.
Okay.
It says it right here in my notes, Linda.
I got it.
Now, if you're in the airlines, you can count half-weights.
I know
You
this
say you
is
could
dog
count half wits.
No, weights, weights.
Half-wits.
Half-wits would be all of them.
I gotta get those hearing aids.
So we should have 2 more people. I don't know where we'll put them. Any thoughts?
From the ceiling, I guess.
Take a table? We'll rent an auditorium.
Right? They'll have to sit in the middle.
There you go. Time out.
We'll give Michael.
out.
Whoever shows up last, right? They go in the middle.
Yeah, I hate timeout. I really do. I was there a
I'll
lot.
sit out in the back.
I don't see any other corrections to be made.
We're going to give Michael a couple minutes to take a peek at these. Move on.
For more money, I'll go remote.
We'll double.
Think about
Double my pay, I'll go remote. So you can have 12 at the table.
Right?
thing about remote is you can nap, which is nice. I like that.
And drink.
Any further comments, considerations, corrections on the minutes? Do I hear a motion to approve as amended?
So move.
Moved by Ross,
Second.
second by Bob. Any further discussion? Nobody's on Zoom? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, those abstaining, the ayes have it.
I'm going to abstain because even though I was on Zoom, I wasn't getting a lot of it on Zoom.
Okay, all right, thank you. So Carol's abstaining.
Wasn't zooming.
Do we have someone,
No.
oh, that's,
Oh, yes, we do.
It's the resident.
I think that's a resident.
oh, okay. Didn't know if it was a committee member.
Resident.
Nope, we're all here except for Gordon
It's
Larrabee.
only when there's a member.
So Bob or Robert, do you prefer Robert?
Rob.
Rob?
Rob.
Okay, thank you.
Nice and simple.
Okay. So we're going to move on. I know Emily and Sam have a lot for us. But I just want to mention on the first item, which was our interview tour results, this was a tour that Emily, Sam, Matt, and myself did on Monday, February 3rd. We spoke to at least 10 people, 10 department heads, and we went to several different locations throughout the town. And I found it very informative, and so I'm going to invite Sam and Emily to share any details they may have on that tour.
Sure, yeah, I'll just do kind of a brief overview of some of the themes and things that we wanted to share with you all, and then other people who are on the tour, feel free to pitch in if I miss anything. So yeah, we spoke with, was it the building commissioner that I missed? Okay, the building commissioner, finance director, assistant town clerk, our town planner Matt, police chief, the director of the adult social center, the director of the public library, the fire chief, the highway superintendent, and the principal of the high school. We weren't able to make it to the water department, so we'll have to reschedule that, and we didn't end up talking with the town administrator, so we'll also have to kind of get a time to talk to two of them. And
Before you go on, Emily, could you get the microphone there?
Yes.
Is it- The other one, that's good. Share it on YouTube.
Yeah, and then we'll also be reaching out to members of various boards to continue to hold stakeholder interviews as well. So I thought the tour was really enlightening. That was kind of the first time I had ever participated in something like that. So it was really interesting for me to just see how a town works, what the challenges are, what their staffing and capacity needs were, storage issues, equipment needs, kind of trends and changes and anticipated changes for the future. So some of the overall themes that we found was that space and storage is really an issue. Pretty much every department that we visited, that was one of the first things that came up, and we were visually able to see that, for example, the highway department, just seeing them creatively fit all these huge vehicles into that, I wouldn't call it like a garage, whatever it's called, the building there, was so impressive, and that is a big need, along with, really every other department. Yeah, that was something that really stood out to us.
The trucks, some of them were pressed up against the wall, so there was tools like that were being hung on the wall, and the trucks were pressed up against the tools on the wall just to make room. And they were positioned at angles within the shed at some points to fit them in like puzzle pieces. It's crazy.
It was incredible. I haven't seen anything like that.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
Getting highway.
Yeah. It was incredible. Let's see what else. So yeah, I guess I can just kind of go through and highlight some of the things that stood out for each of the interviews we had, if we have time to do that. I wasn't at the building commissioner meeting. I don't know if you had anyone had any notes on that.
Not with me right now.
Not with you. Okay, we'll skip that. We'll come back to it later. So we spoke with the finance director. This was a pretty kind of brief interview. So again, space is an issue. They have a lot of kind of
Finance director for the school or the
the town. Yes.
Jean.
Jean.
I thought you said he. So I was like, who's?
No, the finance director here.
Yeah.
So additional space is a priority, but there are plans to expand to the second floor, I believe. So would love to hear more about those plans.
Once they got a water line in,
Yeah.
for fire suppression.
Yeah, and then we talked to the assistant town clerk, Lisa. So she was talking about how their work is supported by a core group of volunteers, which is really helpful, particularly for elections. But these volunteers are aging, so that's a potential future issue they might run into, is needing to build up the volunteer base. We talked about one of the weaknesses in the town is the lack of clear animal bylaws and regulations. It's hard to enforce any issues that come up when there aren't specific regulations in place, and the town is not a right to farm community. So that's something that also came up, I think, when we were talking to the police as well. Let's see. Again, spacing, struggling with a tiny office space. They have a lot of documents that they have to keep for public records. So just finding adequate storage for their records is hard. Digitizing, documents, getting them kind of into a database is a possibility, but it's a lot of work as well. Anything I missed with the town clerk?
The town clerk? No, just she mentioned specific cases with people having a lot of animals on their property and calling it animal rescue, and it's gotten out of control in some cases. Matt, you know some of the details of that as well. But yeah, so just the need for clarity with some of the animal bylaws is the main, one of the main things that she said.
Yeah.
But this was the assistant town clerk, and the actual town clerk is on medical leave, so we didn't get a chance to talk to her about more things. It's like one of the things I wanted to ask her is if she had like any like historical records that might be relevant to the master plan.
So we'll have some follow-up questions. Yeah, community development, we interviewed Matt, put him on the spot. So feel free also if I miss anything, but some things that came up was the need for more commercial businesses to offset the tax burden on residents, but in a way that maintains the rural identity of Douglas. Yes. Also, yeah, building the local business economy, but also like the facade of downtown, making it more attractive. We talked a little bit about staffing. The town no longer has a conservation agent or a town engineer. So it sounds like Matt has to take on multiple duties that otherwise were covered, or bring in a consultant for those kinds of responsibilities. We talked a little bit about potential zoning changes that are needed, getting multifamily housing just included in the bylaws. It sounds like it's not even described at all in the bylaws. So just getting something on the books there. We talked about infrastructure needs, getting sewer and water on Davis Street. The town, I believe, does not have like a up-to-date parcel prioritization plan, so getting that would be ideal. So identifying priority parcels for development and preservation. And then we talked a little bit about kind of desired community needs, such as like a community center. That's come up a lot, especially in the survey. 55 plus housing, it sounds like there's a lack of that. Yeah, those are just some of the highlights.
Yeah.
There's also the tip thing. Yeah, there's like a lack of a town engineer, and that's creating difficulty in getting like tip applications through the door.
The TIP is a transportation improvement project that's funded regionally by the state, really. But it's usually done through the Regional Planning Association, I think, CMRPC.
Yeah, so we're looking at opportunities for CMRPC to work with Matt on that right now.
What kind of money do those things usually get about?
Can be
pretty
a lot.
significant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're saying a lot. What's a lot?
Be $1 million anyway, depending on the scope of the project. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, some of them could be 12, I think you guys are appropriated a certain amount annually. It's somewhere between 20 and 30 million, right? And
For
that
the whole
gets spread
state?
out throughout Central Mass.
Okay.
And it gets spread out through all the projects that are applied for. Cities tend to get a lot of the funding, Worcester and Birmingham and Central Mass. No.
And it's generally on state roads, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So this isn't Chapter 90, this is something different.
correct.
These are like major redesigns projects. Like it could be like example would be like what do you call it? Rotaries. That would be like tip projects.
I'm sorry.
Could you speak up,
You need-
please?
Rotaries would be an example of like tip projects, like state road redesigns and stuff like that.
Does that have to be a state road?
It doesn't always.
Yeah.
Like Auburn got their Drury Square done through TIP, and that was not a state road, Auburn Street. So it's possible.
Sam, you need to bring your mic closer.
Sorry.
So I can't hear him.
Yeah, he needs to bring his mic closer.
Well, it doesn't do for the room.
Just
That's for
pull it towards you.
YouTube.
Oh, it only does for that?
Oh,
You can still lay back.
that's nice.
There you go.
So you have to have a town engineer on staff in order to be eligible?
It's just,
For these?
it's,
No.
it's more convenient to have one on staff that can put the TIP project together. Otherwise, you have to outsource it and try to get quotes for someone who can put the project together. That could take a little while.
Being on the finance committee, you get a town engineer. By the time you pay him, you pay his benefits and everything else, you're in like 200,000.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes you think you're going to make a lot of this money and you're not making it back.
So what projects in Douglas that are state roads would be a candidate for
I don't think it
this?
has to be a state road, but I was thinking about downtown revitalization, like something for the downtown area. You do the infrastructure, the businesses come. You know, sidewalks, ornamental lighting, those sorts of things.
And that's Route 16.
Yeah.
But is that state there, right there where it goes to the center of town? Is
I don't
that-
believe so.
It is
Oh.
not.
It's not.
Town
I don't think it
jurisdiction.
has to be a state road.
Okay.
You know, you say businesses will come. We don't have an empty storefront downtown.
No, I-
So, you know, a lot of towns, they're like totally empty storefronts. We don't have them. And as far as grants,
Yeah.
I don't know, but I see a man here that got us like, what, 12 million or something?
Eight and a half.
8.5 million? And he's a airline pilot. So,
I agree with Matt, though. I think downtown revitalization is critical.
it would be nice.
Parking on both sides of the street, you can't get through where the Chinese place is. The if there's a truck coming in, you have to stop.
That's a bottleneck.
It has to be redesigned.
But you're,
Still say a tunnel, Bob, will work.
A tunnel would work.
you're limited there with the buildings. How would you really
Yeah.
do much?
That is, well, I don't know if you can decrease the sidewalk width. If it's 6 feet, get to 5 feet. 5 feet is minimum. Again, this is an engineering problem, not our
Yeah,
discussion.
yeah.
You're a civil engineer, right?
Yeah.
Here we go.
I used to work for the highway department, Mass Highways, so I'm familiar with these tips.
There you go.
Yeah.
But I agree with Carol, hiring an engineer. How many towns around us has an engineer?
Right, no,
None.
Right, so we're not,
Webster, Southbridge, Oxford, no town has a town engineer.
we're proposing working with CMRPC as an alternative to hiring an engineer. That's what we're talking with Matt about right now.
Any other questions regarding the tour and interviews? Knowing that this was just sort of the opening salvo, if you will, just to touch base with people, and you're going to be probably doing more in-depth interviews and discussions.
Yeah, I have more I can go through.
Well, you just
please,
finished,
yeah.
you just finished with Matt.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, we have plenty.
Partway through the day, if that's okay with using people's
No,
time.
please, I thought you were done.
So next we went down to the police department. So we got a full tour of that. Got to see the little jail cells they have. I'd never seen that before.
Built in
So
1930.
no way.
that's pretty old.
Jeez.
And if you behave yourself, you won't have to see it again.
See, if it was the old town hall with a post office, you'd be handcuffed to a
Bench.
steam radiator.
That's right.
That was the jail cell.
Wow.
But then they'd cut you off to Northbridge because they
Right.
had the cell.
Right.
Good town history. Yeah. So then we had just a sit-down interview with Chief Miglianico. Okay. So it sounds like they have a pretty adequate balance with staffing and vehicles at the moment. They have all the equipment that they need, but they're running out of space as well. You're going to hear me say that a lot. So conveniently, like overhead costs are not as high since the building is owned by the town, so they don't have to pay a lot for utilities. So it's kind of a give and take with that. So they have 2 student resource officers, but would feel more comfortable with 1 in every school, primarily for protection purposes if an emergency was ever to happen.
Yeah, right now they have 1 at the high school and then 1 for the 3 other schools that are connected.
We talked a little bit about like traffic patterns, seasonal changes in traffic. In summer, I guess about 10,000 cars are passing through the town every day, is what he said. A lot are coming from Connecticut and Rhode Island to visit the state park and the water slides. So with increased people visiting the town, there's increased like incidents. We discussed some trends. It's easier to respond to issues in the state park now that people have GPSs. It's easier to find them. The last few years, they've seen a decrease in overdoses, particularly fentanyl overdoses, so that's good. They do get a lot of calls related to mental health, so they've teamed up with Family Continuity that offers like kind of programs and meetings with people who are struggling with mental health. Do you have anything else?
Yeah, there was also, they hired a new, or they didn't hire one. They now have a new clinician through the state for free that can help with like follow-up care for people that have had like drug issues or alcohol problems or domestic abuse issues. So that was like a really good resource that they can now tap into. She comes to the town 2 days a week now. So.
Yeah, that was just a quick summary of that discussion. Then we moved on to the Adult Social Center. We talked with the director, Patrice. So she described some of the new improvements. The van has been, the senior van has been a really helpful asset. They recently hired a part-time cook. They switched to all reusable dishes just for recycling purposes and cost saving. They offer a lot of activities that are open to the region, but 90% of attendees are from Douglas. Unfortunately, they have to cap them out at 50 participants, and even lower for like any dancing activities or things that require you to move around. And there's like always a waiting list, it sounds like.
Yeah, she had said like they could, like, based on the demand they're seeing, they could easily afford to, like, or there's enough demand for a space of 100 people, is what she's saying.
Yeah,
warrant getting
saying,
that,
yeah, ideally, they would have a space that has a commercial kitchen to increase their capacity to cook. They would want 4 storage closets for like medical supplies, art supplies, other storage needs, a space to hold events and activities for 100 people. They would love to have fitness equipment and such as a treadmill and like other kind of things like recliners, I think, for like movies, movie days. So she was just saying, yeah, if in an ideal world, it would be great to have a space for all of that. Yeah, she also talked about how they work really well with all the departments in the town. People who are just very willing to like show up and help the seniors, such as like highway and fire departments will shovel out driveways and walkways when there's bad weather. The cable station records exercise programs and puts them on their cable channel for residents who can't like sign up and go to the classes. They can just watch them at home and do like exercises at home. So yeah, it was really kind of refreshing to hear that. And again, their department doesn't have to pay for the use of the building because it's owned by the town. So again, they're kind of making do with what they have, but ideally, you know, would have a bigger space to engage the residents.
And they are having to pay for utilities, though.
They do, okay.
Yeah.
All right, then we moved over to the public library. Yeah, the big issue with the public library is accessibility. This is a barrier that's preventing, you know, seniors with mobility issues and any people who have handicapped barriers from even just being able to use the library at all. So we were talking with Justin Snook, who is the director. He has gone to the Board of Library Commissioners for a like proposal of what changes the library could like kind of physical changes the library could do to improve the space. But they came back with like kind of a ridiculous proposal. It was like 13 to 15 million, is that right? In improvements, that's what I wrote down. 3 times the size. And so he was like, this isn't very doable. Like what they're focused on is just using the existing space, but making it more handicapped accessible. So that's something we kind of want to look into and see if there's any funding opportunities out there, just ways to like get this existing space for everyone in the community to be able to use. They've
had a problem in the community in the past where like they've done feasibility studies and then they get shut down at town meeting. So it's just been kind of if they can have like a way of funding all of it without having to like pull on the town as much and without and like getting a study done that can give like a cost estimate without like through grant funding without having to use any like debt exclusion, then like that seems to be the way forward. So we are looking at grants for them right now, and it looks like we can maybe do it through either Community Compact or Community One Stop. These are both grant programs that we've done in the past for other towns.
Yeah, seeing which avenues are kind of available.
Yeah, I mean, actually, this is funded through Community One Stop, so you guys know about it.
Yeah, and then we had also talked about like if they need like have other kind of funding issues and stuff. It sounds like staffing's okay. They had brought on a couple part-timers in the past year. Ideally, more money for electronic materials would be ideal. They haven't yet met the demand with kind of their virtual library. In terms of programming, it sounds pretty solid for adults and younger kids, but it's challenging, I guess, to engage the teenage population like consistently. So we talked a little bit about that. Anything else you kind of missed on that?
Not that I can think of right now.
Yeah, I think those were the big things. Yeah, and then we had lunch at, was it Harry's?
Douglas House.
Douglas House Pizza, yeah. And so I took a little break. Then we went over to the fire department, got a tour of everything there, their space, the engines, just where they sleep, and just everything, meeting spaces. Sounds like staffing is currently stable, but in the future, okay, I wrote down they would like to maintain a 3-3-3 shift rotation, which I'm not actually quite sure what that means. I'll have to follow up on that. I think it's 3 people on for 8 hours or something.
I gotta review my notes.
Yeah, we'll follow up with that. But it sounds like it's stable. Cost of replacing gear and equipment is extremely expensive, and even can sometimes be very challenging to find replacement parts. So we learned, again, costs have gone up because of inflation, and then there's also kind of limited like lifespans for some of these products as well. The gear has to be retired after 10 years, and it costs about $4,500 per set. So that's very challenging for them to, like, financially.
That gear being the firefighters use.
Yeah, the whole, like, the mask, yeah, everything.
The engines too, it's insane how much they cost, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they said
exactly.
they have an older, they have 2 pump trucks. One's much older, 20 years older, and a new pump truck is over $1 million, is that correct?
Yep.
$1 million, yeah.
So it's a huge capital investment.
Yeah, and they were saying even just like if a light bulb goes out, like even just replacing that and just finding the specific kind that they need can be really hard, and they can be waiting like months for a replacement piece. So that building was completed in 2000, and they were saying it was spacious then, but now the space it's kind of tight for them. It also isn't sprinklered, which I found interesting. So they have a lot of high-tech equipment, which if they were to have some kind of incident or fire in that, like they would lose all of this like very expensive, important equipment. They had like a lightning strike to the building a few years back. Yeah, and that I think did some damage, some minimal damage. So, yeah. So, yeah, they have, it sounds like they've been very mindful about like putting away funds, anticipating like upcoming major investments and costs, and they also hold like fundraising events and everything, but it's still at the end of the day just extremely costly. Let's see, so then we went over to the highway department. Like I said, very, very tight spaces for vehicle storage. Sounds like funding is also a challenge. That's a theme that's come up in these discussions as well. Between what they get from the town and what they get from Chapter 90, it's just barely enough to cover, paving for a short portion of the road on one side of the road.
I think he said half a mile would cut through all of his funding for paving.
For a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. Another interesting thing was historically the department has had a lot of like longtime staffers who had a ton of like local knowledge, but a lot of those folks have retired. So it's really hard to kind of build up that that knowledge that's kind of lost when people retire. So even though there's very young, hardworking people that want to be there, it's still just replacing that is really, really challenging. They also brought up an interesting issue about flooding. We talked about, I guess, historically, there was like a flooding, it could kind of just like naturally go off when it rained, but a lot of houses have been built in these areas, so that was something that was brought up that like now the town is kind of facing.
Specifically in the last 10 years, he said it's caused significantly the flooding's gotten a lot worse in the last 10 years just because of the amount of new developments going in and previous spaces that would have helped mitigate the flooding, because they're running out of new space to actually build the housing, so they're building in like catchment zones and whatnot.
I guess they had swales on the side of the road that used to go into the forest
Yeah.
and disperse, and now there are houses there, and the people living there aren't happy because they're getting flooded, so.
Yeah.
Did he mention which areas those were at?
No, he just said it's like a general issue around town.
Anything I missed from highway? Yeah, our final stop was at the high school. We got a tour of the school, which was great. It was great. We talked with the principal, Robert Bringat. Yeah, he had talked about a few different challenges. One, the kind of primary challenge he had talked about was losing like incoming 8th grade students or 9th grade students to Blackstone Valley Tech. It sounds like a lot of students are choosing to go to high school over there instead of sticking with Douglas High School. So he would like to revisit the agreement with the kind of regional towns that source students into that school.
Well, it's because like the grades, like they're, part of what they're weighting to like rank students that they take in is like they're taking students with the higher grades. So, like the students that might have been more suited for like trade school are not the ones that are actually getting into the trade school.
Right.
Because they're just selecting for like the academic prowess, which is,
Right.
yeah.
So he'd love to continue to see students who really want to get into the trades and everything go to those schools if they elect. But it sounds like that school is not necessarily taking those students.
Right. They're taking the top 150 highest scoring applicants to the school
Yeah.
in terms of grades.
Right.
Yeah. That's like their primary weighting criteria in the ranking.
Yeah, so that was an interesting discussion. We also talked about how they've been addressing chronic absenteeism, which kind of increased a lot, particularly since COVID. So he's implemented a new attendance policy. We talked about the physical building, the school building. I mean, it was built in, I think he said 2003. So he said the school building's phenomenal, but again, storage isn't kind of the only issue there. We talked about potentially some like athletic field changes or upgrades, things like that, to really boost their athletic program. Also talked about ideally having some kind of like bridge program implemented to help students that are struggling with like tough at-home lives or drug use, kind of transition and have support there. Also talked about wanting to boost the music program and offer more electives. Electives being something like game theory as like a part of the math curriculum, and having more kind of pathways to careers, such as having like a criminal justice career pathway. So it sounded like he has a lot of ideas. He's a newer to the position, I think the last year or two. So
I think the pathways were like they already have like these. What's cool at the high school is it's kind of like students can already specialize in unique programs.
Yeah.
So they have like a whole like 3 different boards with like unique fields that like the students can pursue as part of their studies to specialize in different things while still getting all of the core curriculum.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we had also talked about because the state voted to end MCAS as a graduation requirement, so they're still kind of waiting to hear from the state about if there will be any kind of like changes, new things implemented as part of graduation requirements. Yeah, okay, so that was my kind of summary of the day. Anyone else who's on the board, or anyone have any feedback or questions?
Do you recall the numbers I asked? I took copious notes. It was an 8-hour day, copious notes. Put it in my pocket, washed my shirt.
I was gonna say, you had cookies
I'm
with them.
trying to remember the tour. But I asked the principal the numbers of the capacity of the school. Was it 700 to 800? Versus, I wanted to compare and contrast what the capacity was versus what they are now. And they're well, as you mentioned, Carol, they're well under capacity.
Right.
And he wants to utilize that capacity.
But
let's
that's
say,
all the schools.
that's the high school. I asked for the high school.
Okay, but
Just
what-
the high school.
All the schools
What I
are
found
down.
online was they're down quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, the high schools, they're getting, students getting siphoned off to the Valley Tech.
Right.
Yeah.
For college prep, not just for tech.
Yeah.
And what were they, about 2/3 capacity? I'm trying to recall what the ratio was.
I have it written down in my notes, but I don't have my notes here.
So he desperately wants to use this space.
Right.
The big question is, what happened?
Yeah.
10, 15 years ago, this was the place to go to for school. People were coming into Douglas.
Yeah.
Now it's an exit.
Cost of housing.
But you know what?
People can't afford $1 million house to come here with 2 kids just to go to the school.
The generation that
just
has the
can't
kids,
do it.
have the kids,
Yeah.
that, it's almost like there's a dip in the,
People are not having children.
Exactly.
That's
There's just fewer
exactly
kids
what's
these
going
days.
on. They're not having children. I read a thing where they put up out towards Boston area, they put up a apartment complex, okay? They ended up, they had less than it was like 200-unit apartment complex, less than 0.2 children per unit. 0.2, not 2.0. I mean, but the average family now has 2 dogs, but they don't have 2 children. So,
There's no college education with dogs.
This is true. They only last
school,
about
but
15
they-
years and then they're gone.
But I think it's going back to real estate too, a young family with young kids. You're usually looking for a starter home on the lower end of a budget, and you're not gonna find it out where
No.
a median houses have million and up. You just, unless, you know, you have a real, two good jobs or whatever, you just can't swing it. So that kind of moves the population of younger kids around the areas that are more affordable area.
Well, then that's not Massachusetts at all. That's not the state. But it's not only the state, it's countrywide. Countrywide, the population is aging and people are not having children. I don't know, like when I'm old. By the time you were 22, you had a couple of kids, Now they don't get married till they're 40. They're too busy having a good time.
If they get married.
Right, if they
Expensive
do.
to get married.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, houses used to be 3 times salary, back 40, 50 years
Right,
ago. Now
yeah.
it's like 8, 9 times
That's right.
salary.
That's right.
So, yeah, it just takes longer to make that step into a house. And Massachusetts is very expensive by definition, so.
So is that the trend we will see now for the near future?
It's the
A
trend now.
third
They desperately want
occupancy in
to
our
change
schools?
that. Yeah, they'd love to change it. The principal we spoke to is just full of energy, he has lots of ideas, good ideas. He wants to attract students back to the school, but, yeah, that's the trend now, is they're going
Well,
down, not up.
competition is Blackstone Valley Tech,
Absolutely.
BVT.
but they're not taking that many kids, because I'm on finance too, and I see how many, because we don't like it because it costs us more to send a kid to BVT
Yeah.
than it does there. But when you say, it's not taking all those numbers down, I forget, I'll have to go, I was surprised that there's not really that many kids.
Was
I
it
mean, it's
like
not like they're
30?
taking a whole classroom.
Yeah.
They're not taking, I forget what it is, but it's not as many as what you think. It's 13 towns that are going there. One of the towns is Milford, so how many people do they have and stuff? So it's, that's not, that's a little clink in the downwards, but that's not the big thing.
No, it is something that's been going on for 60 years, because if you go back to the 1960s, and if you look at your median US household adjusted for inflation versus the median home price adjusted for inflation over the last 60 years, one of those trends, which is income, has gone on a plane like this, and one of them, which is housing, has gone on a plane like this. You go back to even 60 years ago, your typical mortgage was a 15 or a 20-year mortgage. Now it's a 30-year mortgage. We've even talked about offering 40 and 50-year mortgages going
Right.
forward. It's the same thing with automobiles. The standard automobile loan, 30 years ago was a 4-year loan. Then it became 5, 6, 7. So again, to get people, because wages aren't keeping up with the prices, to get people into a house, to get them into a car, you're extending the debt over a further horizon. So that is what is, that's a tremendous impediment to people that want to have a family, is they're waiting longer, so they're having fewer children because it takes them longer to save up for a lot of these things. And it's nationwide. It's not regionalized, it's nationwide. And when you look too at housing starts in this country, housing starts are statistically not keeping up with population, so you have fewer single-family housing starts in this country. So builders want to build something that they're going to make the most profit off of. So if they can build a $600,000 house, they'd rather build a $600,000 house than a $300,000 house, because materials are roughly going to cost them, whatever they are. They're going to make far more profit off of the larger home. So there is a lot of problems that are just beyond, kids going to Blackstone Valley Tech. There are a lot of problems that we, in the master plan committee, we're not going to be able to solve those problems. What we at least need to be able to do is come up with some sort of thoughtful ideas, or take some of the thoughtful suggestions from folks about how we can at least best prepare the town for the next 20 years.
And the BVT thing wasn't really primarily brought up because of the enrollment issue, but more just for the academic success of the students getting into the school that they should be in. You know?
Oh, I can remember when we wanted an override, one woman came in here and talked about how her kids had gone to Douglas schools, they got a very good education, and they went to college, but her youngest one was going into the 9th grade, and she wanted to make sure that he would be able to go to college. So she was going to send him to BVT. So it's not, is it a trade school or is it a prep school?
Right.
You know, and this is what's happened to.
That's the argument the principal was making.
Yeah,
What is-
exactly.
And it is citing students. so.
Right.
I hire BVT students every year that are going into the engineering trade.
Right.
And so they work for me in the co-op, and it's a great, great program, because
Right.
they're way ahead of the curve, you know.
No, I think
But that's a trade.
it's a great
that's offered-
school, right,
Excuse me, that's offered at that school and not at a high school, engineering.
right.
Well, but they're in the engineering curriculum, and then, because they're going off to engineering school in the fall. And so their senior year, they do co-ops at different engineering companies.
Interesting, I think the principal, we went through certain rooms where they were doing engineering light, if you remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
And he said he's limited to what he can do because of the way it's done now. He can only go so far. He can't offer these programs that would encourage students or.
So, we've been involved with the Douglas Schools work-study program. And I don't know if there's other businesses or if they even know this. For 20-some-odd years, I take on 2, 3, 4, one year I had 9 students from the high school here in town. But I don't know if that's known. You know what I mean?
From the high school, Ross, or from?
From the high school in town here, in Douglas High.
Interesting.
For the past 20, every year, and I've always had students.
Do you hire students after you train them?
I have,
Yeah.
and some have moved on and become very successful mechanics.
And I assume other business you know are doing the same thing?
As far as I know, I would assume, you know, I don't know. I don't know if the high school, I don't want to say advertises, but if they
Exposes the program.
let businesses know that there is a work-study program here in town. Not that it would attract more, or keep more students in town, but it's an opportunity for the students to,
Well, it could. I mean,
You know?
if all the highest achievers are going to Blackstone Valley, I mean, I know kids in high school locally around here, and you talk to a senior, they have, you know, we used to have a study hall, if you're lucky, right? They have that, and they have like 2 free periods, and they have like all this free time. It's like, so how much actual school do you have
Right.
in a day? It's like an hour and a half, you know? So if I was a high-performing student, and I wanted to stay that way, I would go to a school that's like teaching you stuff, and so you'll have better results out of high school. So the way to turn Douglas High School around is to have results of the students that are coming out of school actually knowing some stuff. So depending on what kind of restrictions they have about what they're allowed to teach or not, you know, man, oh man, like, I love sharing videos of my son about, man, of all the things that we wish we were taught in high school that you don't learn till later in life, you know? So I don't know what that looks like as a curriculum, but I mean, I think that's where it would be, is in the results of the students graduating, and that they actually know stuff and they can move on to good colleges. They'll pass those entrance exams and all those things. Why can't they learn any trade? You can't learn anything? Engineering, I mean, that's math. That's just paper and stuff. You know, I can understand maybe an auto mechanic if you can't do that, but there's got to be something we can do so that they have some life skills that you can activate on right out of high school.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of anxiety around, okay, now what are the job opportunities after you graduate high school? I think previously it was like, okay, a high school, you know, education, you'll be able to get something, but now it's, even a college degree now, it's like the job market is so tough, so.
Well, again, that's where the trade school comes into play.
Yeah,
Now you're
that's
learning
why
an
there's been that
actual
big
skill that you
attraction.
can use day one
Yeah.
out of school, you know? Why not?
Well, that's what Bay Path in Charlton and Blackstone Valley were at one time, trade schools.
Right.
Now they've transitioned to high school.
Engineering
Right,
prep schools.
right.
Almost.
like a higher end. Like we're missing the trades.
Instead
The
of
plumbers,
plumbing,
the carpenter,
welding,
the
car
electricians,
mechanics, carpentry, that was taught
Yeah.
in electrical, electricians.
Well,
That
office-
was taught in those schools,
Yeah.
but not
office
anymore.
work, You know, secretaries. I mean,
Yes.
the
Absolutely.
work-study program is not only good for the student, but it's good for the local businesses.
Correct.
Because it's a great resource that a business can teach a student real-life skills, even if it's just secretarial.
Accounting, you know,
Anything.
just
Accounting,
basic accounting and
absolutely.
bookkeeping, all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Our break-in is the coffee run. That's the first thing you learn.
They took that all out of the schools, all the trades, and like you said, you have study hall. Back in the day, you were a senior, if you had, say, 3 classes, the rest you go down to the shop. Spend the rest of the day down at the shop instead of doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
Nowadays, they'd rather have the kids do nothing than teach them something.
Right.
But
And I'll be
some
honest with you.
people in Boston and higher, whatever, decided, well, you can't do that. And now everybody's in the
Get their
mix.
phones in school, you know, so they're not engaging
Yeah.
so much in it. I don't know what the teacher's sentiment is as far as how hard they can push themselves to teach kids that aren't engaged.
Right.
I'm sure it's different
And
these
some
days.
kids, like you say, they're just hands-on. They can't sit there with a book, but they can, put their hands and mind to work, completely different.
And that's where you lost it with tech. That's what tech used to give, and they don't anymore.
They used to introduce students to trade, sorry, we digressed. These are the interesting
Yeah.
conversations, I think.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to.
Back in the day, way back.
But whose
It was
problem is
it was in middle school.
Yep, we had
We
wood
had-
shop and
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
had carpentry and all those things in middle school. When I
Middle
when I was
school.
growing up in New York.
Mechanical
We had all these
drawing,
things.
stuff like that.
Yeah, right.
Home ec, yeah.
Home ec.
Shop, art, computers. That was in the 90s in middle school.
Yeah.
Those were the 4 that you had.
Had more than that, middle school I went to.
Yep, we had metal shop,
Everything.
we had woodworking, we had ceramics, we even had, as
Printing.
part of general science, you learned about automotive skills. You learned about automotive repair as part of general science because you were learning about the mechanics of a gas-powered engine. So it was something that in your science, in your general science in middle school, you learned about automotive tech. So these were things that you are approaching the students in middle school, trying to get them even before they got to high school
So
with some of these things.
we have a lot to talk about. Just affordable housing alone could be an evening. But they're interesting conversations, but if it's okay, we'll probably move on. Thank you so much for the detail you brought to it. And any final questions regarding the tour?
I know originally the plan was at the very end to drive around town. Was there any time
We were
for
a little
that?
tired. I think we'll come back and do a drive around on a nice day.
So I was gonna say, even after the tour, you still want to come back, right? Is that?
Yeah.
Good.
When are you
good.
finishing your interviews? Water, sewer, Bob Sullivan? Because I'd like to be there with him when you do.
Sure,
that.
yeah, we still need to
What's the
schedule
date?
that. Within the next month, right?
Yeah, it gotta be, yeah.
Yeah. We'll let you know.
Because we also still
Yeah.
have to, arrange
Should
the
we still
interviews
get
in
a
the chapter.
tour
office.
of it, probably?
A tour of Douglas?
The water department?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Depends which end.
Wear a mask.
It's actually cleaner
or out?
than there, you think.
Well, as long
Gotta
as you
get
don't
the
get,
town administrator, water
yeah.
department, board of health.
But Ken, through the chair, one question. When you're at the high school, was it brought up about the student survey?
Yeah,
Oh,
we'll talk about
How'd
that.
that go?
yeah, that can kind of transition into the next thing I was going to talk about. So we also talked about, because we're planning these mobile workshops, so it's kind of like a focus group, I guess. So we have one scheduled for March 10th, so we'll be going back to the high school. The principal and I think the guidance counselor have recruited a kind of subsection of the high school students to meet with us for an hour. So a number of students from each grade, and we'll have like a discussion activity for them. We'll be there in the morning. The 2 of us, I think Carrie from CMRPC will be there as well. Somebody else from the committee wanted to be there as well. I forget who it was.
I've
Was it?
been
Okay.
suggested, yeah,
Okay,
if
yeah.
it's available,
If
yeah.
you're available, March 10th at 9 a.m.
9 AM?
That's at the school,
Yes, yeah.
March 10th at 9?
Yep, it should be a Monday, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so we'll be doing that, and then we also asked them to put out the survey. It sounds like they have like some kind of monthly free study period, where I don't know who, the principal or someone will be pushing out the survey to them. Then I keep checking, and it looks like they haven't taken it yet, so if it hasn't been pushed out by the 10th, I'll just send a reminder. But yeah, that's all squared away.
And that'll be done at the school, not being brought home?
It'll be online, yeah,
At the school, though,
at
yeah.
the school.
In that designated period.
This is high school?
Yeah.
High school.
Yeah, but I'm going to reach out to the middle school principal as well, because we also wanted middle school students to take it.
I guess it wasn't all students, it was, and I don't want to say select, was it social studies, or?
Yeah, I
Just going to
wasn't
narrow it down a little bit.
I think he said that the survey he would distribute to all the
Survey will
students.
be all, but then the workshop,
The workshop, he said, would be like a cross-section that he's going to work with the counseling office on to get like every single like demographic and like, social group of students.
yeah.
Yeah, like you get like, try to make it as balanced as possible, like across like, high-performing students, lower-performing students, just to get like, a good balance, representation.
yeah, should be fun. We'll report back on how
Yeah.
that all goes. At our next committee meeting, were there any questions at the committee, like, while we have the students present, were there any questions that you wanted us to bring up to the students? I know you had talked about like the work study program, something like that. Just while we have them in a room, if there's anything we want to relay to the committee, or to the group from the committee.
Why don't you ask the kids
Yeah, the
how they think about what's going on with the schools?
Yeah.
And about the behavior of some of the kids and stuff. Is that affecting their education when you get kids that are acting up and teachers are not allowed to discipline them?
Like bullying and stuff?
What's that?
Bullying?
Just bad.
Not even bullying, it's just, every kid's on a plan, so that, if they decide they don't happen to want to sit in the class, they can walk out. If they want to do this, they can do that. Oh, yes, and my kid didn't do that.
I get disciplined.
Yeah, we had one
What's that?
counselor
I
in
said,
my
I get
school.
disciplined.
Don't most schools have multiple counselors these days too, just from a
Well, we need more
budgetary standpoint?
attitude adjustment counselors that tell us.
Correct.
So you were always on double secret probation, Ross?
I
was
became
I.
real
Not
good
even
friends
secret.
with the principal.
Get to know them.
Yeah, I would do his errand for him.
I would wonder what the kids think would be important for them as far as what they think their education should be teaching and what they foresee the world's going to look like when they're out of high school.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, career choices and things like that, but just the skills that they think they might need, just to see how clueless they are.
Yeah, do they feel like they're being prepared for the post-secondary education life?
Do they
Prepared
think,
for life, never mind secondary education. Half the kids don't know what a checkbook is or anything like that.
do you,
Worried about. Right.
And that's a problem.
That's
That's a
true.
problem.
I know one kid, they asked him to sign his name, he goes, huh? They didn't teach cursive. That's serious.
I
It's
went,
like, it's scary.
I went to the post office with something, and the woman said, well, that's not the right zip code. I said, well, what's the zip code for that place? She said, I can't read cursive. And she was working for the postal department.
Numbers.
And those are numbers.
Couldn't read cursive.
Wow.
She couldn't read a cursive,
Yeah,
and
the
she
young
worked for the
generation, they
postal
don't
department.
teach it. They don't teach math. The Smithsonian is looking for volunteers to read old cursive
Right.
and translate it.
Translate it.
King's English.
Translator.
It is a skill.
Yeah.
I will say that as an archivist, it is a
It's
skill.
scary.
Yeah.
Just teach them math to make change when the cash register goes down.
But if nobody's using cursive, then why are they going to need it,
And as far as
Because all our
checks,
founding
too,
documents are in cursive.
nobody's using
We're all
checks,
dating ourselves.
checks either. Everybody pays, somehow
Smartphone.
through their computers and everything. I have tenants, and they go, you're going to send me a check? Check. So they literally go down to the bank and they get a a cashier's check at once a month to send to rent because they don't have a checking account. The older ones all do, but not the younger ones.
So was it, if you went to public school when you were younger, was it common that they would teach cursive?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Penmanship, they called it.
Second, third
Penmanship.
grade, you will
Learn that in second and third grade,
I
yeah.
went to a Catholic school and lived to tell the tale. And they taught us the Palmer method.
Yeah. I think ours was the Reinhardt method or something, but yeah. Oh, yeah, you had penmanship. What I really used to get, although I can remember they used to make us do it with an inkwell, okay? And I remember saying, this is ridiculous. They have ballpoint pens. Nobody's going to write with inkwells. But that's what we had to use, a little blotter.
Tough for left-handed people.
Yeah, right?
Awesome, yeah, you can relay some of those questions.
I guess you can pull from your survey, too. You have some great questions in there, so.
Yeah,
use that
Get
as a
feedback
resource.
from the kids.
Yeah, right.
recruit one of them to join the committee?
Why are you going to BVT and Oxford?
Honestly, yeah. He said he has a freshman there that's like the smartest kid in the school, so we should just bring them in on the committee.
For real.
I want you to know that Douglas does have a student that's in Harvard University that graduated from Douglas High School, though.
Nice.
And her father's a mechanic.
Any other thoughts? Did you have anything else in the mobile workshop?
Just that the other one is scheduled for March 27th at 11:30 a.m. at the Adult Social Center. So that's the second one we'll be doing, but that will be, I think, after our next March meeting, so
March 27th?
I think that's what it was. Yeah, I think that should be a Thursday. So again, if anyone's interested in joining,
A Thursday.
yes, perfect. If anyone's interested in joining that one, we'll be doing, they were so booked up. I
Yeah.
was like, do you have anything open in the next, month or so? They're like, we have March 27th and April 24th. That is it. So March 27th it was. They are so busy there. It's incredible.
Was that at the school?
No,
The
at
senior center?
The senior center.
Oh,
the adult-
oh, yeah, oh, they're really busy.
Yeah. They're like, we can fit you in this one time. Okay, we'll take it. Yeah, I think that's all I had for mobile workshops.
Okay, so if everyone, no further questions, we can move on to phase two.
Yeah.
Talk about that, what that entails.
Okay, so that, I was going to create a timeline, but we're going through kind of adjusting kind of who's going to be working on chapters and things
Yeah.
like that. So I don't have one prepared for you just yet, but I will have one at the next meeting. But just generally, I can kind of review what to kind of anticipate for phase two. So we're wrapping up, we had the town tour, we'll be holding any stakeholder interviews of the people that we missed. We'll be holding the mobile workshops in March. Starting the March meeting and the April meeting, we want to get into developing the vision statement, which I want to save some time at the end of the meeting just to talk about that, like what that means, what we'll be discussing at that. So that'll take about a couple meetings. I don't really want to spend more than 2 meetings on vision statement development.
There's also going to be, throughout this time, between now and when we do the vision statement development, we're also going to be having the chapter author interviews with different department heads that are relevant to their chapters.
So that'll be kind of on our end, kind of throughout the process.
Yeah.
After the vision statement development, we'll be getting into chapter development and goal development. So Sam and I and Dominique, who came to the first of these committee meetings, have kind of been discussing like the best process for this. So we're thinking we will, it'll take about 7 meetings. Each meeting we will focus on a different chapter. So we've got 7 chapter elements. So this will take us kind of through to the end of the calendar year. For each meeting, we will bring in someone from CMRPC who will be doing the actual writing and data collection for each chapter. We kind of have like people who have their special focuses, so people who are more in our transportation team, or versus those who focus on kind of open space and recreation planning. So we'll have them come in. They'll be discussing based on their research. They've spoken with. Like you said, the stakeholders, done data collection. We'll inform them anything that we've discussed at these meetings. So they'll come prepared with key themes and a set of kind of draft goals and objectives and action items to kind of present to you all and get feedback on that. Yeah, that's just a quick summary of kind of how we're anticipating that process. So that will start, I think, in May. Yeah, so at our next meeting, I'll bring like a specific timeline of when each chapter and what chapter will be discussed at each monthly meeting. But just wanted to give you a quick overview of kind of how we anticipate that will go. It's something we've done for past master plans as well, so that's worked well for other towns, but obviously we're open to any feedback. If you have any suggestions of any changes you'd like to make, anything you'd like to say, anything I missed?
Well, there's also that part where so for May, we'll have like chapter 1 being discussed. Then we want to have the next meeting be focused on chapter 2, but the first like maybe 10 to 15, 20 minutes of the next meeting will be like sort of a review of the final draft of chapter 1. So after the chapter author gets your feedback, they're going to spend the next month sort of finalizing their writing of the chapter. And then they're going to come to you with a full draft of it. We'll send that out like a week ahead of time for the committee to review. And then any comments that they'd like to make or discussion of priorities for the different action items that they propose in that chapter can be discussed at the beginning of the next meeting. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So.
Okay, thank you. It's a pretty decent summary.
Yeah, we'll have more specifics at the next
Yeah.
meeting, but just wanted to provide that. So in summary, yeah, each kind of meeting will be focused on a specific chapter.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on that? Will we move on? Okay, thank you. So quarterly reporting, this is interesting because it can be a little confusing. It's quarterly reporting, but only as it applies to 2025 and the first half of 2026. So it's like every 3 months, once we're in that cycle.
Right.
And then, so the first one is due April 2025.
Yeah.
So what does that
April 15th.
entail? What would be in that? Do we know? Or-
It's what expenses are done, what work's been done by CMRPC. Part of their contract, they'll be providing the quarterly report, and I'll have to submit that to the state so we can get our funding. It's just one of their requirements for our grant.
Okay.
Quarterly updates to make sure that we're doing what we say we're doing.
Also, we don't get the funding. The
Right.
funding is sent directly to them.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
Similar to MassWorks, reimbursement.
Okay, any questions on that? Thank you. Survey results. Da-da-da.
I have a box this time. Great. Let me pass them. There were just so many pages, I had to put them into binders.
Cool.
Cool. Oh, that's cool.
So here, the first section is the summarized results. Oh, I could pass them.
Yeah, we can take this.
Keep it on.
Far down, far down.
Sorry, they're kind of cold, they were sitting in my car.
Yeah, I can see that.
One more? One more.
Okay.
Hopefully I printed it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good.
I think we need a comment on top of the table there.
Yeah,
They passed them along.
Meg needs one, Rip needs one.
thank you. I think we're good.
Very good.
Okay, yeah, save thank you, and then.
You know, I got something that you sent, Matt, that said, I clicked on, the only thing I ever got was a little picture on the front. And then you said something about some way you're supposed to get into it. Okay, now I'm lost. I just gave up.
Yeah, I tried to send it as like an attachment in an email, but there's so many pages, it was so big, it couldn't send in the email, so I had to add it to this like online, it's called Dropbox.
Okay.
Like a file
I
storage.
guess you need to.
Which it can be confusing.
You
for
need to
sure.
give us A, push your computer. B, I mean, not just go to Joppa.
Yeah.
Start your computer, do the A, B, C, D, because I don't know.
You start your computer.
Yeah. So I, like,
And
I
you gotta wait for it to download. That was my first mistake.
Well, I couldn't even-
Like, how come I got a black
Well, the
screen?
minute I saw Dropbox, I quit right then and there. I don't know, I guess all the rest of you are young and know how to do that stuff, but I'm not too good at that.
They all have a master plan SharePoint.
Do we? Oh, okay, so we can add it to
Oh,
that.
you just sent that to us, right? Yeah.
Okay, we'll add to that, and then it should be added to, so if we all approve it today, adding at least the summarized results to the town website as well, so the public, we can share with the public. Post it on Facebook, thank people for taking the survey. 'Cause I know a lot of people are probably really curious, this is what I thought, but what did my neighbors think?
I like the pictures that you added.
Yay, okay, good.
I do have a question. Rebecca, you had a box in one survey. You got
One survey was in it from the
Okay,
library.
yeah, I included that as the total, so, but I'll add that response in, and then it shouldn't change the results too much, so.
You almost got the 900.
Yeah,
So close.
when I got this, I
So
looked in
close.
the foyer and I'm like,
That's the
oh,
first
we
thing
still
I
have the box here. And then I looked in the box, I'm like, oh, there's a survey in here.
No, we're 6 away.
I just chase down people in town to take the survey so we get to 900.
We could ask the students,
We have their survey.
Yeah,
so,
that's
you know.
true.
So what is our standing in Worcester County?
Awesome.
We're
It's one of the
I
highest.
should
We're
have
at the awesome level?
Very awesome level. Sorry, I'm just trying to share online if anyone's joining online.
It's definitely top 5 of most surveys taken, I'd say.
Yeah. Top 2 probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should do a tally of all
I
the
like the
surveys we
pictures of
put
the
out.
sidewalks, all correct.
But yeah, let me know if you noticed anything you think that needs to be changed before we put it out to the public. If I missed anything, I tried to incorporate all the feedback that we talked about at the last meeting, but if I missed anything. There we go. Just looking online. I had started to go through, I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, but on the platform that we use, SurveyMonkey, we have the option to kind of filter responses. So we can say, hey, for people who are in this certain age bracket, because they would have checked off, oh, I'm, age 55 plus, something like that. How did people respond to the other questions? So I started to kind of go through and see if there was anything that kind of stood out based on the age bracket, based on the income bracket. The biggest one that stood out to me was the top preferred housing types. So I selected for those who were age 65 plus, like what were their preferred housing types versus those who are, I did the under 45 category. So for those who are, retired, approaching retirement, elderly population, they would like to see small to mid-sized housing, single-family homes, retirement or active adult community, number 2, cottage housing community was number 3, ADUs was number 4, and assisted living or memory care, number 5. So that kind of reflects, the types of housing that population would see themselves living in. Maybe the town doesn't have enough options for that already. Versus the top housing types for those under age 45, they were saying they would prefer to see small to mid-sized single-family homes. Okay, that's the same. The age 65 group. Large single-family homes was number 2. So those are the people, maybe they have kids, they're planning on having kids, they just got their dream job and can afford large single-family homes. The number 3 was ADU. Number 4 was mixed use, and number 5 was cottage housing. So you can kind of see how the different age and affordability kind of goes hand in hand there too. What people are earning at different stages of their life.
And how many total housing options were in that list? Do you know?
A bunch.
Like more than, like around 10, right?
15.
15?
Oh,
Okay.
15.
15. Yeah, kind of similar to that. I had, based on the age responses, we were asking about preferences for repurposing the old grammar school. So 48% of those age 65 or over wanted to see it turned into housing for seniors, versus those under age 45 wanted to see a community center.
What about the 20 years in between?
I didn't run that one. This is me just kind of playing around with it, but I definitely can. And if anyone thinks of anything, hey, I want to see what this response is based on, you know, someone's age or how they responded to this question, just let me know and I can run that. But this is something, yeah, we can continue to do as we're doing like chapter development as well. This will be really, really useful for us. So, yeah. Congrats, everyone, on finishing the survey and getting the word out there. I'm really proud of how this turned out. This is going to be so helpful for us just having this like local data to work with. And this is awesome.
Thank you, this looks great. It really does, it's very readable. It draws you in. Because this can be very dry stuff if it's presented another way, you know?
Oh, yeah.
This is nice.
Where's the town beach going to go?
The what?
The town beach.
We used to have a town beach.
Where?
Moss Pond.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep, I was on conservation, and all of a sudden, that Gazille property, he has those exotic birds there.
Yeah.
We brought that whole area. And we were doing something for conservation. We came across this huge swing set. It was like something you see at the old Purgatory Chasm, you know, the pipes and the chains and the swings. And I'm like, what is this? And Leon Bazinski says, this was the old town beach. And it was all sandy, and it was a huge swing set. So we did, but I can't remember what he said, why it was discontinued, maybe the liability or something.
When I was a kid, Schuster used to allow everybody to use Bad Luck Pond.
Yep.
And, oh yeah, and there was even
Yeah.
a bathhouse to change in, and it was a beautiful sandy beach, and,
Off of Cedar?
yeah, right off of Cedar. You never went to it?
No.
Oh, we'd still go there all the time, and at Bad Luck Pond.
Okay, so we've had two town beaches.
You too, right? I don't ever remember anything on Moss Pond, but it was always Bad Luck Pond. And I think farther down in the woods there, he had some type of blinds
Get a
for
duck blind
hunting
on
or
the
something.
backside.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, down into the,
We didn't get to do our scenic tour of the town, so don't laugh at this. This is a dumb question, but what about Wallem Lake?
State beach.
There is a beach.
Oh, there is a beach, but it's state?
there is.
Okay.
it's state, and it's practically impossible to get into. They line up at 5 o'clock in the morning for miles to get in there from all over the state and
Okay.
Rhode Island. There is a
Rhode
fee.
Island. Yeah.
Small fee.
But the problem is it's less expensive for an out-of-state person than it is in Rhode Island for an in-state. In-state's more expensive for Rhode Island than out-of-state in
Right.
Massachusetts. So they'll come over here because it's cheaper for them here than it is for them to do
Oh, I
in-state
see.
there.
Okay.
And there's no like local preference. Like,
No.
No, not at all.
No.
In fact, it actually, we have a lot of problems down there, and it costs, you know, we have to be sending the police down there, and it could cost us quite a bit of money.
And it used to be that after 4 o'clock, they would reopen it.
Yeah.
And the state finally allowed us to stop reopening after 4 o'clock. Because what would happen is people would just line, and they would
Oh,
use
yeah.
people's, like, driveways
Oh, yeah.
to hang out during the day, destroy people's yards, that kind of stuff. And the state finally allowed us to not reopen after 4 o'clock.
They mentioned the state park having that problem too at the police station, but maybe they were talking about the beach. But yeah, he was talking about like that people would just like wait on the roads outside.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
That's what he's talking about, Wallen Lake.
Oh, yeah.
You signed up for a
They make
standby list,
themselves
if
at home
somebody left.
everywhere
take the
else.
first person off the standby list to keep it at capacity.
Okay.
But then, people would come home and find people swimming in their swimming pools,
Seriously,
using their grills.
honestly, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Go to the Facebook on 4th of July, and you have people at like 7 a.m. just showing like the line to Wallem Lake at like 7 a.m. on 4th of July, like trying to get to their house, and they can't because the line to Wallem Lake is that long.
Heaven forbid there'd be an emergency.
Yeah,
in the
right,
area.
right.
Yeah, it's a 2-lane road, narrow. So if they're parked on one side, it's a 1-lane.
Yep.
Didn't they use the overflow in the highway building? They set up
I don't
the
know.
overflow.
Sure.
I know Family Convenience had a huge problem with
Oh, yeah.
people. Ray ended up having to,
They were using the brook. That was their beach. Yeah, they go down the brook behind the store. It's crazy.
Bathroom facility, too.
Yeah, that too.
Well, the town doesn't own any property around either of those bodies of water anymore,
Yeah.
so.
Well, the Gilboa, that pond there, all around that, the town owns that land.
Not exactly swimmable pond. I don't know if I'd want to swim right
I'd wanna go-
downstream from where they dump the rest of the
But this
sewage.
is upstream.
A little further upstream.
That's true.
You got to get on the other side of the sewage
Right.
treatment plant.
It's also,
Where are you talking about?
also flows.
Across from the mill.
Gilboa Pond. We own that little parking lot.
Oh, we
and
own
all
that
the
parking
land
lot.
around
Yeah,
it.
you don't want to go in that water.
No.
No.
Well, that's where where Schuster dumped his stuff, was below the dam.
Well, you could tell what color he was doing, yeah.
That's where the outflow was.
Yeah, so the spot that the town owns across from the dispense, it's a factory,
it
right?
is.
Yeah.
All that water is like sewage, basically? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's treated.
It's treated, but you
it's-
wouldn't want
you
to
don't
go
swim
swim
in it.
there.
Just joking.
I mean, people fish there. I
Right,
don't know if I'd
okay.
eat the fish, but they fish there.
A couple swans live there.
Yeah, swans live there. I mean,
It's a
it's a nice area,
It's a
but I
capped
wouldn't,
environmental concern right under that parking lot, right?
I wouldn't go swimming there.
Yeah.
And the dam is probably 10 feet high, but if the water gets 2 feet, it's already dry shore, so there's 8 feet of
Yeah.
muck. So if you start sinking, it's like quicksand.
Oh, yeah.
You won't get out.
But, as far as water quality, I mean, I've lived down that area my whole life, and the water was really bad. And then when I purchased the property down where Picnic Point is in Whitensville, which is that water going by, one day my brother said, "Boy, this water looks pretty clean." I said, "Yeah, let's get a test on it." So I brought it to a testing laboratory. So I called them up and I said, well, what are the results? Well, it's blah, 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 blah. Yeah, okay, but I mean, all I want to know is it swimmable? Oh, yeah, it's very clean water. I wouldn't swim there, but, because of the muck and everything else, but the water
Yeah,
itself.
that's just the
The water
flowing
itself
water,
is,
not the stirring it up.
is clean, and it is
Yeah.
coming past the sewage treatment plant. Part of the sewage
And the
treatment plant
Axmill
does
factory is
discharge,
there.
They do
supposedly clean
discharge, but
water.
it's almost potable water.
Yeah.
It's that clean.
Well within.
We're out of luck with the town beach.
Sadly, we
I think
are.
liability-wise, you don't want to mess
Yeah.
with it anyways.
We got
Emily and
Wallem
Sam,
Lake.
did you have
Get
any
there
other
early.
comments on the survey?
Someone did say, and I've heard this, and I don't know if it's true or not, that Schuster
only
wanted to
thing was you were
give
gonna make a
bad luck to the
valid
town,
question.
and they didn't want it, because they didn't want the liability, so.
Yeah, we could probably do some other stuff like that with other questions.
Yeah.
But we wanted to do like a map of like where they identified like hazard areas for traffic.
Okay.
Like a density map to show like which ones were selected to be the most.
Yeah, so just thinking of creative ways to kind of use this information.
I have
Yeah.
a question on page 8 of 127. There's a column for weighted average. I'm just curious on what that formula is to come up with that average and what the average means.
Did you say 127?
Oh, 8.
8
Oh,
of
8.
127.
We have a hard stop at 6:30, both Bob and I have to go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, up there, right there.
Sometimes,
Again, weighted
sometimes it just, like, on SurveyMonkey, it will default to a weighted average. But you can still, I think there's a way to go back in and select to get just the regular count, so we can just go back and do that for that
Yeah,
one.
that's weird. I'll look up the actual definition of that, because I'm not really sure.
And then for all the comments below, the numbers on the left, they don't mean anything other than it's a timestamp, basically. They're not, it's not like, number one is the most popular response. These are all individual comments from individual people, it looks like.
Yeah, it's
So-
just based on the time that they gave them, I think.
Okay, so basically, if we're looking at this, so the total number of respondents being in the upper 800s, and how many people made comments on this section was actually a lot, 135. That's the most I've seen so far. Other sections weren't quite as numerous at all, 50 max, yeah.
Are these all the comments, or did you pick and choose
No, the second document in there is everything.
everything?
Yeah.
Like in the last one, there's 447 comments.
Really?
437 for one of them, too.
Wow.
Depends on what it was.
Difficult areas or intersections you encounter traveling through Douglas on a daily basis, 437.
What
What page is that?
53 through 68.
Imagine people like talking about that one.
Yeah, so we were just talking about how we want to, that's really hard to go through that many comments. So we're going to try to turn that information into a map. So we can kind of, yeah, I don't know, we're talking about the different ways to do that. I guess a bigger circle according to the more times people said that intersection is challenging.
Because it's gotten the most comments,
And then,
it's the most needed.
Yeah.
and then Douglas from 20 years from now had 447, and that's page 94 that starts on.
So let's do this. Obviously, you're going to take this home with you?
Yep.
I'll put it on the agenda next time we meet, and then we can discuss it more thoroughly when you've had time to kind of absorb it all. I think there's a lot to look at here. I thank you.
Right.
It looks good, and I'm looking forward to good.
I think, yeah, I mean.
Set up very entertaining, like you said, too.
Yeah.
It's like a good book.
It's readable, yeah.
This is what we signed up for, right? I think we should be reading the entire thing, really, and just highlight the things that are really sticking out.
So are there any other further questions on anything we talked about tonight? Questions, comments, considerations? All right, our next meeting is it March 19th?
Yes, sir.
One thing I wanted to ask is there any need to meet more than once a month, or are we still good with once a
We do
month?
have 2 meetings in April,
Okay.
3rd and 5th.
Okay.
Mondays, so.
I do have a handout I just want to go over just to prime people for the next meeting. Just a little bit of reading, just because the next meeting, we want to start to develop the vision statement. So I just pulled together quick, kind of like, I like slideshows, as I said, summary of kind of what is visioning, what is a vision statement. I threw in a few examples from other master plans. I also have the vision I printed out from the 1998 master plan. So if you can just take a few minutes and review it before our next meeting, just so you're ready, and yeah, I don't think we need to talk too much about it now.
Are you passing out something?
Yes.
Do you want to, I guess we don't have the materials for that yet, but like, talk about.
Post it on the
review?
SharePoint site that we're getting at now?
Okay.
I'm not prepared for that.
Oh, yeah, you guys don't have
We
to leave
pass them all
now.
down? Or each one is an amount? Okay, here we go.
Just keep passing
Keep it passing as like this.
until we get to the end.
Okay.
Going?
Sorry, I don't, there's probably a better way to do this.
Hot potato, hot potato.
We're almost back in
It's the
front.
fire brigade.
I guess I can
Slow
circle it
down
that
there.
way.
All right, we are at the
Critical mass, okay.
Keep going.
Couple more.
A few more, a few more.
Down to me.
Good collaborative.
Yeah.
We're up to Mike.
No, I got mine.
They
We're
get
good.
yours?
There's
Okay.
Carol.
All right. Margaret.
Yours, Margaret.
Okay, so real
Matt
quick,
and I
you
and
said
Just imagine it keeps circling around.
the 3rd and 5th,
Yeah, that was almost fun.
April 3rd and 5th?
No.
the 3rd and 5th week, 3rd and 5th Wednesdays of April?
Yeah, it's the 16th and 30th, I believe.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, there we
Well,
go.
this was when we were looking forward to the year 2020?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's gonna be fun.
Master plan, so this will be good reading. But you were on that master plan,
Do you want to
too.
make a motion?
You were?
I was
Yeah,
on the,
last call for any
Finance
comments,
committee.
considerations?
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
second.
Motion made by Bob, seconded by Ross. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, the ayes have it. Go in peace.
We're done?
Thank you.
Good night.